What is up, guys? Tomato here. Today I thought we'll be looking at a very basic simplistic jungle guide for beginners, just to get you into the role if you either want to go into it for the new season or just want to try it out, or you just got autofilled and you don't know what you're doing. I'll just give you the very basics. Let me just start off by showing you guys what I want to go through in this video. And again, it's a very basic guide. So first of all, I will be going through the different types of junglers, then where you should start, what camps you should take, when to gank, how to assess the gank, which is also going to vary depending on what type of jungler you are. And then also at the very end, I will try to demonstrate 2 very easy drills that you can do on your own in order to improve some essentials in jungling. So let's just start off with the tier list that I have made. Again, the tiers are a little bit weird. Most people only have a couple of these rather than the amount that I have. Again, I'll just give you my version. This is not set in stone. Some of these jungle champions can be put somewhere else. If you want to fight me on some of these positionings of junglers, then I would be not surprised at all, because again, this was a very generalized, obviously opinionated tier list. The very top we have gankers such as Elise, Jarvan, Ivern, Nunu, the ones that are just trying to, as soon as possible, get their full kit online, which would be their level 3. Obviously they have their ults as well, but most of these junglers do not really need their ults to gank. Champions like the Elise, like the Shaco, like the Ivern, they just want to recamp as soon as possible and then just start ganking to then get a lead, just snowball the game from there, or just enable their teammates with the ganks as well. Champions like the Jarvan in particular can also gank at just level 2, but the most common ones are just getting level 3 and then just keep ganking. At the second tier, we do have the farmers, which we do have 2 types of farmers, which would be either the level 6 farmer, and then there's the carry farmer. So the level 6 farmer would be stuff like the Amumu, the Nocturne, the Shyvana, the Rengar, the Fiddlesticks. Champions that can't really do much before level 6, but once they get level 6, they get a huge upgrade, either to their ganking potential or just their fighting potential in general. And then secondly, we have these champions that will just want to farm throughout the whole game, and then just carry once they hit 2 to 3 items, or even 4 in some cases. And in those examples, we have Master Yi, Arthas, Diana, even though Diana is pretty much can carry on 1 item as well. Hikarim as well is a big example of that. They just become very difficult to deal with once they get to a certain point, if they can just farm up to that point. Then now we got 2 very interesting tiers that I made myself, which are invaders and fighters. So the invaders are the champions that almost, if you're not playing them very aggressively, you're not taking advantage of their kits. So the Kindred likes to get their stacks in enemy jungle and to kill the enemy jungler, and Nidalee is just very difficult to deal with because she's very slippery but also very difficult to pilot. So unless you're a very experienced mechanical player, I would not suggest you pick up those 2 champions. Once they are perfected, they are very deadly and can easily carry games on their own. Then we have the fighter tier, which is maybe a little bit of a meme tier, which I could have put Olaf in there as well. It's the tier where I'm just warning you, do not fight them on crab if they're already there. They will just beat you up in a 1v1. Be just very mindful of these champions because they are just stat sticks in the early game, and unless they can just beat you down when you run into them, they're gonna lose value rather quickly once it goes to mid to late game. Then to the very fun tier at the bottom here is the versatile tier, where we have Bel'Veth, Graves, Olaf, Volibear, Kayn, Kha'Zix, Skarner, Zac, and Talia. I could have probably put some other junglers in there as well. These were just the ones that instantly popped into my head when it came to versatility. The biggest one would be Graves, where I'm like, okay, this is probably the most versatile jungler out there, because he does have potent ganks, he does have good invades, he does have good farming potential, so he basically has most of it, but not as good. He's not the best level 3 ganker, he's not the best farmer, he's not the best invader, but he is pretty good at pretty much anything, which is a good reason why he's often blind picked in things like pro play, higher ups as well. Also, he can also be flexed into mid and top lane, which is also another reason why he's picked very early on blind pickable. Again, he's just very versatile as a champion. Then we have champions like Bel'Veth, Kayn, for example. You would think that they just want to farm up the entire game and then just scale into these really big monsters. Again, Bel'Veth is one of these champions which you would think that she just wants to farm, but she has very, very potent ganks. So if her laners allow it to, she can be a very strong early game ganker and can just re-gank the same lane over and over with her mobility and setup. Again, most of these junglers will just depend on the game and what they want to do. So Zac is pretty similar to Nunu, that he will gank a lot, but he doesn't mind at all if his lanes don't have any setup to just sit back and farm up to become this very tanky engage tool. If you have any questions about some specific champion, I will happily try to answer them. And if you do have certain questions about Bel'Veth, I would suggest you go check out Demex. I will leave his Twitch and YouTube channel in the description below if you do want to check him out. He is one of the best Bel'Veths in the world, if not the best. So make sure to check him out if you haven't already. If you're watching this, you probably have. Again, that's why Bel'Veth is in the versatile tier. Otherwise, if I didn't actually know that about Bel'Veth, she would have probably landed in the farmer tier. So now to the next point, where to start. So in team 1, we have Fiora top lane, Elise jungle, Veigar mid lane, Ezreal ADC, and Yuumi support. Okay, Elise is the jungler. And then in team 2, in the same game, we have Quinn top lane, Karthus jungle, Xerath mid lane, Pyke and Draven in the bot lane. So Pyke ADC and Draven support. So hopefully we would have something thrown up on the screen so everyone can actually remember which teams we have now. So for the team 1, Elise, if you're like, as you can see on the screen, we're blue side here. So the Elise, where would she want to gank? Like, where would she want to start and where would she want to path? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about your answer, and then I'll give you what I would do if I was the Elise. Okay, got it? So, in my opinion, the Elise should start at her red buff, and then either do chickens into Gromp and then gank top, or just take red, blue, Gromp top as well, or red, wolves, Gromp top. So any version of just getting to the 3 camp and then running up to top would be what I would have done if I was the Elise. Because again, there's no real setup in Ezreal Yuumi, and what Ezreal Yuumi wants to do is scale, meanwhile Draven and Pyke want to kill them early on. So that's my reasoning for that. The Karthus, on the other hand, has a little bit more of difficulty because he could probably gank either the Quinn or the path toward bot side. But considering that Elise is so much stronger early on than the Karthus, I would, as Karthus, start top side so you would avoid the Elise and just have priority bot side so you could maybe even look to invade some Krugs, chickens, or maybe even Krugs as well, or just gank bot side as well, because of the heavy early game in the Draven Pyke. Now to the next point, how to assess the probability. What we're trying to do here, again, we're trying to figure out how to assess how good ganks is, because how you're supposed to look at ganks is you're supposed to look at them, how probable is it that this gank is going to work out in a good way, meaning that we either get a kill or we get something out of ganking, because ganking takes a lot of time, and if you're not getting something out of your gank, then why are we ganking in the first place? So again, just imagine that we have our Fiora versus Quinn matchup, which most of the time Quinn is going to have the early game prio. But again, what we were going to look at, like, I'll first just try to do a good clear. Again, not really the Elise expert, so I'm probably going to watch this a little bit, but we've probably watched some clear guide on how to properly clear on Elise, but here we are. Since Elise is mostly single target, I'm not going to take chickens, even though that might be the faster path. Again, I'm not going to sit here and preach on how the quickest Elise pathing is, but we're going to roughly be done at around 240, 245. There you go. So you'd be done at around 245. Obviously, I've been standing still on the ground for a little bit. But here, this is the Quinn pushing up into our Fiora. You would probably have a sweeper as well and not a trinket. But this gank looks okay for now. It depends on how healthy the Fiora is. But since the wave is not too big, I would still try to go for this. Again, we're assuming that Karthus is not up here because he's most of the time full clearing. Because he's the ganking jungler, right? Or we're the ganking jungler and he's the farming jungler. So let's say you kill her here. You just help her with a wave, whatever. But let's say this is a Darius instead, and it's pushing into your Fiora, and Fiora's already taken a bad trade. Then this would probably be a bad idea, because look at how big the wave is. So let's say I'm just standing in the wave. So let's start at 4 minutes. Let's see how long this wave is gonna take to just like kill me on its own. Even though like the whole wave's not hitting me. But if I'm hitting the Darius, the whole wave is going to be hitting me. So after just like 10 seconds, I've lost half my HP. And not even all of the minions were hitting me. So just imagine the Darius hitting me as well while he's probably going to be level 4. It's gonna lead to a disaster, right? Like you should probably almost never, I'm gonna say almost never gank if the wave is this big at level 3. These minions do a significant more damage than you will do as a jungler. Again, if it's a weak top lane that can't really damage you, that's a different story. But try to respect the minions to let them crash first. Maybe you do scuttle, maybe you do blue again, just to let the wave thin out until you actually do your gank. But again, it's a very basic guide. So while we're going to the end of the video, then I have 2 drills that I want to go through with you guys, right? So the first drill is going to be about camera. So you can do this on any champion. And again, this is just a very simple one where I want you to just assess lane states before ganking. So let's say you're on your blue buff and you want to do a gromp, but you want to see if you can gank mid or top within the next 20 seconds. So what I want you to do is I want you to hit this, pan your camera down here, then go to the next one. Like you're gonna have to do this in step. Obviously I'm not a jungler, so I'm not really that good at this. But let me just try to demonstrate how it's supposed to look, right? So you do this. Obviously, again, you can do this a lot faster than I can probably. But the idea is that you're gonna be taking your camps, right? So you're gonna be throwing your abilities, smiting, and you just pan over a little bit of what's happening. Obviously, this is going to take a little bit on your clearing timer, but it's gonna benefit you while knowing, oh shit, they're fighting. Well, let me just leave these and then I'll come back for them later. Or like maybe just finish them off. While you're pathing towards it, you can see that like the enemy mid laner is like really low. So you're gonna have to instantly gank it by just like flash E-ing or something like that. But that's the main reason, like you want to have the information whether or not you can gank. So I'll just go through the drill again. So you can do that as ranged champion as well. Maybe you put the dummies a little bit further apart. So let's put all the dummies in this bush first. So one here, one here, one here. So again, auto, move, look, auto, move, look, auto, move, look. That was the first drill. And then the second drill is more of a suggestion. So let me just restart the... It's more of a just do it rather than a drill. I know I called it a drill, but it's more of a just pick your champion. So let's say you are an Elise player. Go to YouTube, Google level 3 camp on YouTube on Elise. Look at the video, be like, okay, that's how this guy does it. Again, the person I will suggest is Phalaris. He's pretty good at showing off like how to do early clears. So then you look at the clear, you look at the timer, obviously it's gonna be 8 minutes here. But look at the timer. Try to get it as close as possible to the time in the video. Try to look at details, because again, like, yeah, there would be over pulling the wave, like over pulling like the red buff, let's say, to get like 1 or 2 seconds off. But the main goal is, if you're there on time, you're gonna be more successful than if you're 3 seconds late. Well, maybe not 3 seconds, but every second in the jungle counts. Anyway, so that's all that I'm gonna show you in practice tool for now. So again, we're just gonna go through what we've learned here, hopefully. Which type are you? Try to identify it yourself as well. So, can my jungler gank with the level 3? Are the ganks going to be good? Yes, no, maybe. And again, things like the minion wave is going to increase or decrease your chance of the gank. And some of these junglers in the level 3 gank, they need less to make a successful gank. Meanwhile, let's say you're playing Karthus, you're going to need to have a lot of things going for you if you want to get off a successful gank. That's why the Karthus usually doesn't gank very much often. It's because the probability of the gank's success needs to be higher for Karthus to want to take that. Meanwhile, if you're playing Elise, Rek'Sai, and Nunu, you're like, well, I'll just roll in my snowball and see if it hits. If it hits, that's a flash. If it doesn't hit, well, then I'll just roll back and 15 seconds later and try it again. It's more about what are you willing to lose while ganking, right? These junglers up here don't really lose that much while ganking. They expend some cooldowns and then they can just run to the next line and do it again. Meanwhile, a Karthus, if he loses like 2 camps and the gank has like a 20% success rate, he's not going to want to take that, because again, he's going to carry the game on 3 items anyway. So why would he risk the game on a 20% gank that's not even going to lend him more gold than just taking his camps well? Next thing that we went through was what camps to take. So again, as you could see when I was in the practice tool with Elise, I did not opt to go for the Raptors because of the amount of single target. Obviously, again, I'm going to pull up the tier list just to take it a little bit more of a easier example to grasp. That's why I'm going to go to Warwick, because again, he has purely single target. So before he gets his Tiamat, which is the item that costs 1200 gold that gives you AoE on your auto attacks, and also his Q because it has on hit, he cannot take raptors and chickens. Oh, I just said the same thing twice. He cannot take raptors and krugs. I'm sorry, guys. Raptors and krugs within a reasonable time that it is worth for him to do so until he gets his Tiamat. So most of the time on Warwick, you're going to see 3 camps, 4 camp clears into probably Scuttlecrab, into hopefully fighting the enemy jungler, because that's what he wants to do. Meanwhile, things like the Karthus, the Amumu, the Diana, the Echo, they don't really mind AoE because they have it. So they have both single target and AoE. So that's why they're full clearing junglers, because they can take every single camp within a reasonable amount of time. So again, just look what your champion has. Just, can they do the camp in a good amount of time? Yes, no, maybe. Do the camp. Again, look at the team comps. I took only one example in that in my notes that I haven't even shown, where it was blatantly obvious that you, as an early game jungler, cannot really gank Ezreal Yuumi. They don't have any setup or whatsoever, so the probability of that gank going through is going to be low. Meanwhile, if you have a Renekton top lane, then you're going to probably want to gank that. That's why Renekton Elise has been very prevalent in previous years, due to the fact that it's very good early game. They're both very strong champions, and they can help each other out with CC, layering, and good dive potential. What type of jungler are you? Where should you start? Just look for the smallest details, as well as, for example, summoners, right? Again, now I'm maybe jumping a little bit back and forth here at the end. But let's say that there's double ignite in the top lane, It's Renekton versus Darius. Okay, Darius doesn't take Sniper. Darius takes Ghost. There's no TP, meaning that if one of them dies, they're going to lose a lot of it because they can't just instantly TP back and catch the wave. So that's going to be more of a reason for you to want to gank that lane, rather than if both of them have TP and they're both tanks. That's all for me, guys. If you have any questions or anything was unclear in this video, then let me know. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Also, real quick, I didn't mention this, so I do stream on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so feel free to just check it out. I will be actually streaming right after I've done recording this video, but again, this video won't be out, so Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays on random times. I don't really have a specific time where I do start streaming. Also, do check out my editor, Honest. I will have him in the description below. And also a friend of mine, Demex, which is one of the best Belveths, if not the best in the world. So, yeah. Again, sorry about that. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!